Welcome to PSL Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 410. And we'll do a little bit of an update today.
That's right. We got an update episode today. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, we have an episode that drops every single Wednesday, our long form content, at least an hour long. And every other week we do something different. So one week we do an update. The next week is a theme, specific topic about one thing reselling related. But our updates are where we get to talk about what's going on in our life reselling wise, what's going on in the reselling community at large, news, things that are happening. Like today, we're going to be talking about eBay earning reports, what that means for us as resellers. So it's a great episode. We love these. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and if you want to catch our live too, we just had a live about the eBay earnings report. Today, we're going to go more in depth into it in our reseller topics. All right, Mike, what's going on with you, man? How's the reselling life?
Yeah, I mean, things are going pretty good. Actually, like today, we're recording this on Monday before it drops on Wednesday. Today is the first day back to school. Like I'm back
really,
at
already?
it. Like I'm back in the swing of things. And I'll tell you this, like as a teacher, I really enjoy having breaks. I mean, I think it's like crucial. It's one of the reasons I'm in the teaching field. I love having breaks, but the reality is in my mind, I think that when I'm on break, whether it's a 1 week break, a 2 week break, a summer break, that I am going to just like turn on the reselling like spigot and just go all out reselling, go crazy. But what I've realized over time is I thrive on routines. And I think that's true for a lot of people. I think we've talked in the past about,
Atomic
being very,
habits.
being very specific with routines, being very, intentional about the way you plan your day and being consistent with certain things. And I find that even though I, on paper, should have less time for reselling when I'm at school, and I've, got a normal 9-to-5 type work week, plus some, because grading and all that, lesson planning, I actually tend to have more focused time on reselling because I have a structured schedule, right? Like I know that I'm going to be waking up at a certain time in the morning. I'm going to get up at 4:15 or 4:30. I'm going to do my workout. I'm going to, get ready for work. I'm going to go to work. Sometimes in the morning during my workouts, I'll get like 2 or 3 listings done, go to school, do my school thing, come home, dinner, and then we're either recording the podcast or I'm doing a couple listings, maybe doing some sourcing. I know when I'm going to source, I know where I'm going to stop. And have you ever heard the phrase, I'm sure you have, that like the devil loves blank space on your calendar?
I've heard other ones. I haven't heard that one.
I mean, it's basically
like a modern version of like idle hands is the devil's workshop kind of deal.
Right. Basically, like if you're not busy, you don't got specific things you're doing. All those temptations come in, and for resellers, those of us who are trying to like hustle, sometimes those temptations are just being lazy, right? Like, oh, I've got all week. I don't have anything planned. I'm going to go to the pool this day. I've got this thing going on. Oh, they got family coming into town. And before you know it, that thing that you pushed off, just doesn't end up happening. And so I found that this summer was actually really good for me. I found that new sourcing place, that Amazon return store. I've done pretty well there. I'm not going to be able to source there as much now that I'm back to school. But I found, though, that just the day-to-day, like the number of listings I got done this summer compared to what I thought I would. And part of it is I wasn't super focused and I wasn't super intentional about, okay, I'm going to list X number of things in a certain amount of days. I'm going to make, what was Wade's number, 180 in 180 days, or how much was it? Like he had a certain amount of money he was going to make.
Wayne, 130 in 130 days.
Oh yeah, Wayne. Yeah, so 130 and 130 days. So $130,000 and 100. If you have those kinds of like focused metrics and goals, then I think I probably could have done better over the summer. But I didn't. And one of the things that I think that applies to both part-time and full-time resellers is just that importance. I think I've been reflecting on this over the last couple of days. The importance of having specific time built into your schedule. Like if you are a reseller, you potentially have freed up a bunch of time. And not always the case. Some resellers are putting in way more time than they ever did at a 9-to-5. But even if you are, you're freeing up freedom of your time. Like you get to schedule things. And so in those situations, you have to be so intentional about how you're planning your time. These are the days I source. These are the days that I list. These are the hours that I list during the day. And if you don't have those kinds of routines, like even you, I know your routine is to watch Netflix or watch TV shows while you're doing listings or while you're packing, right? And so going back to that idea of the atomic habits, like that's built in now. I bet you if you just threw on a random show on Netflix, in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh, I could be listing right now.
I can't watch something without doing something on a MacBook. It's weird.
Yeah.
I always have to be working now. And I just, you're right. It got
part of that is you built that in, right? And whether you're full-time or part-time, it's just, I think it just reinforces that idea that you've got to be focused on how you're using your time, put it on the calendar, or build those atomic habits where this thing leads to this next thing. When I do this, I also do this. And when you build in lots of too much flexibility and too much, I'll get to it sometime this week, the work always fills the amount of time you give it, right? And what was that other law was, I don't remember what book that was in, 4-hour work week or something. But that idea that there's some law that if you tell yourself this is due tonight,
4-hour work week.
Yeah, if I have to get this essay done tonight, right? Like you're going to write that essay when you were in school. But if it's due 2 weeks from now, there's a good chance you're like, I'll work on a little bit here, a little bit there. And then it takes the whole 2 weeks. And so that same truth applies to reselling. You've got to be focused. You got to be on it. But that being said, I was pretty successful with listing this week. I wanted to do a little bit more sourcing, but I just decided, you know what? My garage is getting too full of items that haven't been listed yet. So it's just been a listing week. And I think that the benefits of that is worth it, right? Like you don't get the same dopamine hits when you go sourcing when you're just listing, but there's a dopamine hit that comes when you get those cha-chings. So yeah, overall, it's been a pretty good week for me. What about you, Orlando?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm glad you mentioned the idea of routine, because that's been my biggest struggle as a reseller, especially when things are tough. When times are tough and you're not getting those sales, like the last thing you want is the routine. Now, everybody's motivated differently. Like I'm the kind of person, if I get the dopamine hits, I'll keep working. If I don't get the dopamine hits, I'll look for the dopamine hit. And it usually isn't reselling, right? And so this summer has been kind of brutal in the sense that, my kids have been off of school. And so I always feel the need to do something, right? So like last week I went Dave & Buster's, I went SeaWorld, I went to the beach. Like I did all these things. Now the beauty of it was I could do those things and not have to worry because eBay sales still were coming through. But at the same time, right, you can get into this thing where you feel comfortable and you're like, I don't need a list. I don't need to do this because the sales are coming through. And then you find yourself, if you keep doing that consistently, I do wonder how many days this summer I didn't like follow routine, right? I would say things have been really interesting lately for me. On the one hand, eBay, I find, and again, I'm going to get into conspiracy territory here, but I find that eBay, unless you do something drastic, like you start going from 20 to 30 listings a day to 100, like your store's not going to change. I find that it just doesn't change. Or if you find something that people really, really want, like let's say you find some vintage, like let's say those Game Boy boxes that I found last year, those Pokemon ones, right? Those sold like pretty fast, right? So unless you find something that is like super desirable, you're going to find yourself in a place where you end up having the same sales all the time. Like I don't find that there's any way to get it up unless you do something drastic. Like I think you stay stagnant, and that's kind of what it's been for me this summer. Like it hasn't, it's not like I haven't done much on eBay. I have. I mean, I've pretty much, I could say I could maybe two hands. I could put how many days I actually did not list, right? So maybe 8 to 10 days out of the entire summer, starting back in late May until about now. The rest of the time I've listed, but I haven't done anything drastic. I haven't jumped from, 20 listings to 40 or 50 listings a day. I'm still sourcing stuff that I believe is great compared to sell-through and everything, but there really hasn't been much change. It's a little concerning to me in the sense that I wonder what it would take. Like, what will it take me getting rid of, I don't know, a third of my inventory or 2/3 of my inventory? Maybe my store is weighed down by just stuff I shouldn't have picked up. Or when I did pick up, it was something I could have sold, but I maybe priced it too high and it just stayed in my store too long. Another one is it possible that, I need to kind of like switch stores. Like, for example, my son has his eBay store, and his store gets okay sales, but he doesn't list so much, right? He's not a full-time reseller, and I'm wondering if, like, I talked to him and I said, hey, how about we shift? How about I start putting some listings on yours and let's just see how that goes? Like, I'm not sure what the solution is. What the other thing that's been concerning is I haven't had any, like, super major sales consistently. I get the $100 sale, the $200 sale every once in a while. And I've mentioned this a lot of times on the podcast, but right now all my sales are like the $20 range. And it's just concerning because, you know, you said it before. You do the same amount of work for 10 items that you sell for $20 or one item that you sell for $200. Right? And I'm doing a lot of those like $20 sales, $20 sales. Then I'm finding items that I wish I never had listed, like that are selling for like $8, $9. And in my mind, I feel like those $8, $9, not that's really bad. $10, $15 sales. I think I had one last week that was like, why did I ever list this? But I have a lot of those, and I feel that eBay has like this quota, right? And I feel like let's say I sell 20 items a day, and it doesn't matter if they're high dollar or not, but if I sell 20 items and they all were $20 items, then that's it. I'm not going to get any more. But what happens is now that I sold those 20 items, nothing else is going to fill in those 20. I'm not going to get like sale 14 is going to be like 100 or 200. Like that's it for the day. The eBay algorithm's like, all right, we fulfilled this guy's sales. We're going to keep him happy. We're good to go. And I know that sounds conspiracy. That's how it feels. I'm not saying that's reality. That's just how it feels right now. And yeah, it's been kind of one of those things. Like you said, I'm grateful for routine starting up again. You know, my kids, my one kid's off to college, and then my youngest kid is back to school. But getting back into that routine, you know, because it really forces you to work within the confines of that time that you have allotted, right? So if you only have an hour, you're going to make sure you get everything in that hour. If it's summertime and you know you have all this time, you're like, I'll take my time doing this. Another thing that's been concerning is garage sales here have been terrible, just terrible. Now, I blame that on the heat. In San Diego, we're pretty soft. You know, when it's like 90 degrees, it's like, oh, can't go outside. But that's what it's been lately. The only sales I've really been able to go to over the last 2 weekends have been estate sales. And I got to tell you, these estate sales have been terrible. I'm talking about like fully everything tagged up on eBay prices. And then they think they're giving you a deal if they give you 30% off the eBay price. And it's like, do you guys understand? Like 30% off isn't much, because if I sell it on eBay and I pay your price, I'm already losing like about 12% in fees, right? And then on top of that, you know, the amount that I'm paying you for the item. And then on top of that, if I got a promoted listings. So in the end, like the amount of profit you can make is pretty brutal. So
yeah, see, I feel like when places do that, you know, it's almost...
I don't want people to always feel like they're turning into peers of podcast and it's just been this whole... Things are brutal. But I got to tell you, Mike, I understand the people in the e-commerce bites comments. Like, because those people are angry. Like, they're just mad people. And it's all about, like, eBay used to be this way, and now I don't get any sales, and now, they want me to pay all these fees, and they don't care about us, and I kind of feel that way. Now, I'm not going to vocalize that because I know in the end it's my fault. But go ahead, Mike. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, you're turning into a curmudgeon over there?
So I hope the audio is coming through on your end. I'm just not hearing you on my end.
Oh, that's really weird. All right, you keep going. I'll see if I can fix it. It looks like it's coming through on my end.
So while Mike gets that resolved, or maybe Mike, are you speaking right now?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. All right. So again, I think there's this sense of like when things are miserable, misery loves company, right? And so I'm trying my best to stay focused. I only follow those people on social media that I feel are always consistent about, hey, I'm sourcing, I'm doing this, because in the end, I know that it's because of me, right? I might not be listing enough items. I may not have the right prices. I may have to do free shipping. There may have to be something I need to change for things to get better. And so you got to be careful, because when things are down, you really have that ability, or you have that tendency to get really negative really fast. All right, Mike, are you back with us?
I mean, I'm here. Let me play a sound, see if you hear it.
So yeah, no, Mike, I can't hear you still. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know what happened.
You got it situated?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
All
You
right,
probably were talking the entire time.
No, I was talking. I tried to. You just kept cutting me off. It was so
Well, because
rude.
I didn't know.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm
Okay,
kidding. You're good, man. You're good. Yeah, I even played the Bolos sound to see if you could hear it.
Okay. All right. What are you gonna say now? How you're gonna?
I don't remember. I was saying a couple things. Well, one thing I was going to say is just about that idea of the estate sales, up like putting prices at eBay prices. And we've talked about this before, but it just seems like it's so, I almost say like the gall of them to do that. Cause like the reality is they know two things. Like if they think they can get the eBay price, and I get that you could say like, this is what this item is worth in a sense, but the reason you can get those prices on eBay is you're reaching a much wider audience, right? You're reaching all those people. And then two, you also had to do a lot of work. You had to list it, take pictures and all of that. Just to stick a price tag on something at a estate sale or garage sale at an eBay price, it's one thing to do and say like, we're going to be 20% less. Like this sells for $100 on eBay. This is a $100 item. I'll let it go for 80. Like I would have more respect for that. That may still not be enough margin for a reseller. Yeah. But if you're just the average person, you're like, well, I wasn't going to buy that. I wouldn't want to spend $100, but hey, I'm getting a deal on it. So I understand like using that to check prices. In fact, if I was a normie non-reseller and I was having a garage sale or an estate sale, like I would want to check prices and say like, oh, this is, these are like $20 items. Like it'd be nice to get 10 for it or 5 for it. So I get why they would do that. But to expect to make those prices just seems silly. And then I was just making fun of you a little bit for being a curmudgeon on the becoming an e-commerce bites guy.
I'm telling you, I feel that way. I really do. Now, it's not like I don't think there's a conspiracy. Like, for example, I do think leadership is definitely pushing the direction of eBay right now. And we're going to talk about this in the earnings report, but I get the sense that like if you're in the secondary market and you're not doing what the CEO is discussing, like you're not selling collectibles, you're not selling, high-end like luxury things, like all these things that they're really pushing, like refurbished, right? Because it's like about 40% of the market according to the last earnings report. Like if you're in the old school, right? I call it the old school resellers, where you're just you're finding clothing, you're finding shoes, you're finding all these things. Like it's a far more uphill battle because that is not in the vision of the CEO. That's not what the CEO really cares about. The CEO cares about the alliance with Golden, right? We brought in Golden Collectibles now. The fact that now we have our 10th millionth item authenticated. Okay, like all those things matter. The eBay Live, for example, here's an example. The whole live streaming thing that we were promised, right, 2 years ago. Well, that's the CEO didn't mean that for everyone. It's very clear. The CEO meant that for influencers or huge sellers. Right, people that like have like they could collaborate. So, for example, like they had one with Elton John, and they had one with like I think I don't know if it was Jordan, but some NBA players. They have one with like it's not Backyard Breaks, but one of the big card breakers. Like that's what they really care about. But as far as one day I'm gonna go on there and I'm gonna see Craigslist Hunter, or I'm gonna see maybe Harry Tornado, and even those big YouTubers. Like I don't see that day happening. Like, I don't see those live streams happening. Now, you could flood me in the comments and say, Orlando, it's already happening. You just haven't been paid attention, and that's very possible. But to my knowledge, all the live streams that have happened have been these bigger, like, deals. Have been, it's not the normal, or as you refer, the normie reseller that's just going to the thrift store. It's been people that are selling, like, the cool collectible, like, one-of-a-kind, like, Mickey Mantle rookie card or something like that. So,
and I mean, I understand why they would use that as like a marketing tool, right? Like, hey, we're going to do this special event. I get that. But yeah, if you've got in your mind that, hey, they're going to try and have some kind of a competition with whatnot, then yeah, it's disappointing for sure. And especially if that's kind of how it was presented as, hey, you're going to get the opportunity to sell things live. But I mean, I guess the reality is we have whatnot, right? Like, so if that's the way you want to sell, you already have that. And I don't even know if, and again, I could be wrong. I might have a totally wrong impression of this, but I don't even know that the buyers on eBay are really the market that are shopping on Whatnot and like that live stuff anyways, right? So it's I feel like it's a niche group of people, and probably the most of the people who are buying a ton on Whatnot that aren't other resellers trying to flip stuff probably aren't like huge eBay buyers. You know, I just feel like they're reaching a different demographic. So maybe eBay is just thinking, hey, this really isn't for our, you know, older population on eBay, which I imagine most people on eBay are not. And when I say older, I mean just not Gen Z, right? Like there's probably not as many 20-year-olds in comparison to how many 50-year-olds are on eBay. And so that's probably something they're taking into account. And so they use it as a marketing tool. Like, yeah, if all of a sudden you find out some huge sports celebrity is doing a live auction thing, that might draw some people in. Whereas if they just open it up and try and basically do Whatnot, you know, I don't even know if they could pull it off, and they might end up crashing and burning, you know. So
yeah, don't know. But I got to tell you, the eBay of 2024 is different than the eBay of 2019. I mean, I keep going back, and people always get on my case about this, but I got to tell you, it was different. When we went to eBay Open, it was a totally different vibe. It felt that, I don't know. It was just, maybe it's part of it because the eBay Open was like live, and you got to like meet people and you got to see people. Like, you know, we have eBay Open happening again here on, you know, registration opened up August 1st. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, yeah, I guess, you know, the only reason I'm going to go is for our audience. Like, that's it. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to make sure I got information to share with everybody that listens to the podcast, I wouldn't go to eBay Open. Like, to me, there's nothing for me to gain from it. Like, I can always watch the videos after eBay Open, you know, where if I went actually to this, like it was a totally different. You know, you went and you met with, you know, the people, you know, the executive team, and you met with, you know, the different departments. You met like the one group that was responsible for like the listings, and you met with the people that did promote it, and then you got to meet with other resellers. Like I don't think that's in the. I just don't think that's part of the current vision of eBay's leadership right now. I think their vision is like, hey, it's good that we have these secondary sellers that go to thrift stores and all that, but we can always have that, like, because they always recycle through anyways. So, all right, I'm done. Now I am e-commerce bites. All right, hey, before we move on, I want to encourage you guys. Hey, my reseller genie, listen. One of the worst parts, I think it's the worst part of reselling. Like, I'm thinking right now, like my taxes are due in October because I ended up choosing to extend it. And, you know, thankfully, I have my reseller genie, and it's kept all my information. And all I have to do is go back to my reseller genie, because it's a bookkeeping software for resellers, and just update a few items, and I'll have everything to go for my tax person come late September, early October, so I can file on time with the extension. So if you're stressed about your taxes, or maybe you want to have some bookkeeping software to keep your profit and loss, or keep track of your inventory and all that good stuff, go to my reseller genie, use the link below, and use our code Pure Hustle all caps, and you'll get 15% off the first month. Again, that's Pure Hustle all caps, and you'll get 15% off the first month. All right, Mike, you have any random stories here?
Yeah, so we just had my son's 3rd birthday last week, I think. And so one of the things he had, you know, he's got a big obsession right now with horses. He likes knights. We went to medieval times, so like anything horses, knights, anything Western, that kind of stuff. Like, he's just really into that stuff. So I know you've sold a lot of Playmobil stuff, and they have some pretty decent, you know, horse things and knights. And well, they had this one that was on Amazon for, I don't know, I think it was like $25, and it was a like a old Western like carriage, or not a carriage, but like a wagon, like a bank wagon type thing with a couple horses that pull it. And my mom was, oh, I'll get that for him. That'll be one of the gifts I get him. So she orders it from Amazon, and it doesn't come to us. She says, oh, it's like still showing, it's in the shipping process. Next thing you know, it completely dropped off of her order as if she had never paid for it or bought it. And she had sent us screenshots and all of that. And it wasn't until like 3 days later that she got a message from Amazon. So what I think happened is that it was a third-party seller that like basically lied about the whole situation, them having it. But what happened, and I don't know the whole thing, so we're like, well, he really wants this. This was like big on his list of something he wanted. So we go on eBay, and there was only like 2 or 3 available on eBay, and they were more expensive and all coming from like overseas, like Paris and all these other places. So we ended up finding one from California, and we had to pay quite a bit on shipping. I think we paid like $30 shipping and $30 for the item. So we ended up paying $60 for like a $25 item. But it was weird after we got it. We were just like, what was up with that? Like not being in stock, and there not being many on eBay. So my wife was still looking that one up on eBay. And for whatever reason, the prices have just been skyrocketing on that particular model on Playmobil. And I'm talking like $100, $150 for new, most of them coming from overseas, and they're selling like hotcakes. They're like moving. And I think whoever was selling it on Amazon sold it, realized like, oh, wait a minute, like this price is going up. And so they did something behind the scenes to end up keeping it and selling it another way. But it was one of those things where like, man, maybe we shouldn't have let him open it. We could have just like resold this thing. But he's already loving it and playing with it. But even like used ones are selling. So I honestly haven't done enough research to figure out like why this specific toy has gone up so much. But it's one of those things that it could be anything, right? Like it could be a movie that's come out. It could be somebody had it on a YouTube review show. Like there's any number of factors that can cause interest in a specific toy. And as resellers, especially if you've got a big store, you can't always be 100% up to date on every item that you have. A lot of times you all of a sudden like, wow, all my 49er stuff just sold. That's weird. Oh, because some big thing happened in the news, and darn it, I wish I would have charged more for it. So you can't always be up to date on everything, but it does show the importance of trying to be at least somewhat aware of what's going on and what are influencing prices. Because an item that's $20 today, for some random reason, could end up being worth $150 tomorrow. And so just kind of keeping an eye on that and recognizing that it could be anything you have for almost any reason. And so the more in touch you are with what's going on in culture, and I'm not a big, like, I don't have the time to just be in pop culture all the time. So I miss a lot of things. But it is amazing how much little things can impact the prices of something. So I was kind of upset that what happened with Amazon. It was a super shady situation that happened. We ended up getting it for them for not too much more, but it's just amazing the price increase on that one item. And I'm sure we all have examples of that, right? Where you buy something and all of a sudden, oh, sorry, we can't ship this. Remember when that happened? What was it, Reebok or something that we bought? And then
that's right. Yeah, they clearance everything out on accident.
Yeah, so I mean, there's any number of reasons why, but you never know. You could buy something at a good price and it ends up getting canceled, and then you're figuring out, why is this skyrocketed? Man, this is crazy.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where I think it's easier to do that on Amazon than eBay to cancel a sale, because I've had to do it a couple of times, and as long as I had a bunch of sales, to recover, like my metrics didn't get damaged, because Amazon doesn't like it when you cancel a sale. But eBay still has that whole thing, like how out of stock and all that stuff. And yeah, anyways, I get that. And it's been interesting with Amazon actually recently. Right now it's still probably a good time to pick up some TI calculators, like those TI 84s. And I sold a bunch on Amazon recently. But I got to tell you, some got returned, and I have it turned on with Amazon where they refund them before I ever get the item back. Because Amazon's really good about that. That's why I will always shop on Amazon. This is why I think a lot of Amazon sellers do well. But, Amazon has a thing that, like, if you especially credit back to your Amazon account, like, you can get your refund within 2 hours. Like, you don't have to wait for it to get back to the warehouse or for it to get back to the person. And so I've been kind of concerned because I sold some calculators. And instantly, like, I got a thing like, oh, this is old and I need to return it. And I'm like, no, this is TI 84 Plus is the same as TI 84 Plus. Like, I don't think much has changed in the last decade. But yeah, be aware that if you're an Amazon seller, like, that's just one of the things. One of the reasons I'm not a big fan of Amazon, because the returns were crazy. So that's one of the reasons I got out of Amazon. Now, my random story isn't much of a random story. It's just something I'm noticing a lot on, especially on TikTok lately, is a lot of people talking about, like, how returns are, people are trying to scam them. So, I'll like, a few that I saw was like, oh, somebody had an item and they wanted to return it, but I don't offer returns, but I made the exception on this one. And then I didn't hear from them. And, my guess was that they wanted me to refund them without returning the item. And the reality is like, that's not really something you can know, right? Like I get people all the time. I have free returns. And I get people all the time that ask me for a return. And I'm like, sure, I have free returns. Here's the label. And they just never return it back to me. Sometimes I'll get a message and it's like, you know what? I want to return this, but I really like it. And it's not exactly my size, but I'll make it work. Sometimes I'll get, a request and it's like, oh, you know what? At that time I felt this way about it, but I kind of want to keep it. And sometimes I don't hear anything. So you really don't know. But what I do encourage people to do is accept returns. I'm not sure why there's this huge fear still. The data overwhelmingly, the anecdotal, and eBay even has, forget, a couple of years back we talked about how how much your store gets affected when you open up returns, and it really increases your sales. It does not, and it gives you that loophole to. It's not as strong as a loophole. The loophole used to be really great because it used to be like, hey, if you offer returns, you'll never get a negative feedback. Well, that's not true anymore. eBay has stopped that. But it does give you an opportunity to work things out with the customer. If you're quick on the return, you're like, hey, no problem. You can return it for a refund. You get it back and you quickly refund them. Chances are highly unlikely that you'll get a negative feedback. But if you don't offer returns and somebody wants to offer somebody and you're like, nope, I don't offer returns, then you're putting all the power in their hands. Then they can make up whatever they want. Go, I want to return this, but they don't have returns, and it wasn't the right size or wasn't the right color. Seller refused to work with me, and you get that negative feedback, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So I actually think not offering returns puts you in a really bad scenario to get that negative feedback, and it is not extending that customer service because we all. I speak for all. I don't know. Is there somebody out there that doesn't return things when they don't like it? I think most people do. And on Amazon, I got to tell you, I probably return a third of what I buy. Especially when it comes to clothing, like I'll get something, I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this, and I'll just go and return it. But guess what? I'll keep buying from Amazon. And so I think in the end, it benefits everybody when there are returns. All right, that's my 2-second rant on returns. All right, are we ready to talk about some important news here?
Oh yeah, let's get into this. Let me get up there. eBay has come out with their Q2 earnings, the best cities for garage sales, and sourcing landfills. All of this and more on Reseller News. Zalando, take it away.
All right, so I don't want to go too much into the whole eBay earnings report because we already talked a lot about it on our live stream a couple of days ago. So if you want to catch everything we talked about, but I wanted to go into the transcripts, like what was said. So every eBay earnings report, there's an opportunity for shareholders to call in and ask the CEO questions. And I thought it was interesting. But real quick, just to recap before we get into the transcripts, Q2 earnings, eBay didn't hit the mark when it came to GMV. They actually missed the mark by, it wasn't like a ton, but it was like, I don't know, maybe 100 million. I don't remember what it was, but
they missed nothing. 100 million.
I know, but when it's an 18 billion, when it's 18 billion, okay, that they were looking to get here. I'll pull it up right now. They were hoping to get. Where's my data? If you're wondering why I'm always looking away, I'm looking at the other screen here. They're looking for 18.4. No, the guy. Oh no, actually no. Sorry, my bad. I read this wrong. Their guidance was 17.8 to 18.2, and they hit the mark at 18.4. But it wasn't like it wasn't like huge, right? And so where they really did well is, again, where do you think? It's promoted listings, right? Promoted listings. So. And their guidance was 18.4. Obviously, it was 18.4 billion in gross merchandise value. If you're new to the podcast, that's just basically the money that eBay makes off people selling. You and I, every single seller selling the money they make off of fees. Okay, now that was down from 18.6, but that was Q1. Q1 usually stronger. Q4 2023 is always stronger. But in comparison to last year, they actually did better. But their revenue on the promoted listing, again, it just went up. So, for example, last quarter, it was 384 million. They made 398 million on their advertising revenue. Okay, compare that to Q4. Q4 they made $393 million, and they made $398 million. So they actually made more money in advertising, okay, than they did in Q4. And so that's really what was pushing eBay and making eBay successful. But that's just a quick recap. You can hear more about it in our life. But I thought the transcripts were interesting. And the reason I find the transcripts are interesting is because I think it's very telling about the direction of eBay and what's going on with eBay. So I wanted to share this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But for example, Jamie Ioni, the CEO, like some of the things he talked about a lot was this whole idea of AI, right? And their hope in AI, he says, after fully rolling out generative AI descriptions, we are continuing to test and iterate on the next phase of our magical listing experience, which leverages user-uploaded product images to help sellers fill in the category, title, and other item aspects for a listing. A subset of sellers are testing this experience in beta, and we are leveraging their feedback and expertise to train our models and expand coverage in a broader range of categories. And I thought that was good. I'm trying to read between the lines. Mike, does that seem to you that they're saying that eventually we get to a place like you upload images and it'll pretty much take care of everything? Like it'll fill out the item specifics, it'll do the item description and everything. Are you reading that there?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be where they're going with that. I don't know. I'm hopeful with AI with that kind of stuff, and I know they're going to try and use it. I just feel like we're still in baby steps, and so if you are disappointed with their rollout of other things that we've been asking for, like think about how long they've been wanting, or we've been asking for immediate payment, right?
I just don't think that's the focus. That's why.
That's true. I think that's a big part of it too. Is probably energy, time, money and resources are going into utilizing AI for this type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the direction they're pushing.
But what about this other part? Let me read this other part because I found this part concerning. Then he said, for the first time, sellers can also see a list of personalized campaign recommendations aimed at helping achieve their sales goals, such as adding new keywords to increase the listing visibility or lowering bids for keywords that are driving performance. Additionally, we've enhanced suggested campaigns to highlight new ad strategies for sellers by identifying emerging marketplace trends relevant to their inventory with pre-built campaigns fully optimized by AI.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? With it's impossible for us to really keep track of when prices automatically increase, right? All of a sudden, a certain basketball player, a certain, random pop culture item is really popular, and so it starts selling like crazy. So if you could have some kind of system set in place where if it tracks price trends like live on items, and then you've got like kind of like how you have your shipping policies in place. Like if you had certain policies set up where if this increases by X amount, then increase this, or automatically within a certain range, adjust your ad percentages. So if it was really accurate, that could be helpful. The problem with that though is it's not a tool that's just going to help you. It's going to help everybody. And so then you can lose some of that unfair advantage that you have. You kind of lose the ability to quickly source items and flip on eBay's, eBay to eBay sales. So, I think, but it's the direction we're going. It's almost kind of scary to think that you could pretty much have a computer running your store. But at the same time, it would be helpful if I didn't have to know if you have got 1,000 items in your store and you can kind of set parameters like this is the lowest I want items to drop. This is the highest that maybe you don't have a highest that they'll go up. But, if certain all of a sudden dress shoes are popular and they're moving in a certain category or they're tanking and you're like, well, if I don't have X amount of sales in a certain period of time and the prices drop, then it's free to automatically be adjusting your prices. That could be a huge time reliever for sure.
Yeah, my other concern, and maybe this is just the cynic in me, I'm thinking about the idea of could they also be using AI to maximize promoted listings? Right? Meaning like, hey, by the way, if the AI is working through all this information and it's going, hey, if you really want to make money, you should have these sellers that are selling these items promote their listings, because in the end, they're going to have to promote at a higher rate. And so therefore, you're going to be able to make more profit, right? So it's going to lead to more people having to do promoted listings at higher rates. And again,
I guess is there a big difference between that and the just having to lower prices? I mean, I get it if they're just like automatically increasing promoted listings and those items are selling, but no matter what, in order for them to get paid, the item has to sell. So if you allow, like, if it's like a thing you could opt into, like, yes, you can up my ads automatically up to 12% or up to 15% or whatever number you give is like your high. Is that much different than saying like the AI is automatically going to be able to drop your prices by 15% if that's the new price value, and it's going to guarantee a sell? Like, I'd be okay with dropping my price 15%, getting the sale, or AI saying, hey, if we bump the cost of their ad up to 15%, but we also have to give them the sell for us to realize that profit, it's basically a wash for me and my item is selling.
Yeah, I do wonder if it'll ever be kind of like the third-party repricers that you use on Amazon, right? Because the third-party repricers, like, they follow the trend of the price, and then you can adjust what percentage below or above that you want with that price. Like, if eBay is eventually going to do that, right? And if you want to have those sales, you have to sell within the price range that they're giving you. Because even right now on Amazon, I've had items where I'm the only seller on an item, and I put the price not crazy high, maybe $50 across normal, right? When I try to sell that Playmobil toy to Mike and his family for his kid's birthday. I'm just joking, that wasn't me. But, you know, when you have those prices, like, sometimes they'll come back at you and say, no, you can't sell it at this price. You must sell it below this price. Like, I forget what it's called. It's like the fair price rule or something on Amazon. And I wonder if eBay is eventually going to start instituting something like that because of AI. So just thoughts I have. All right, another comment here from the transcript. So somebody had asked a question and said, so we're seeing on the site sometime popping, whether it's around Christmas time or some other kind of event happening tied to listings that a seller would have, and we're not doing trend-based suggested campaigns all driven by AI. So we're excited about what we're seeing from the early results, but it's really kind of early stages in this. In general, though, every time we've made it easier and simpler to adopt our ad product, it resonated with sellers and helped drive the penetration up. And what we're seeing today, Steve, maybe you just want to comment. And so they said, yes, overall, we see a big, long runway for ads growth. That's both from adoption, from listings penetration, from ad rate optimization, and scaling some of the new products that we have, like promoted offsite and promoted sourcing. So we continue to see a lot of opportunity. We are at 2.2% penetration. We said at Investor Day, we see a line of sight to 3%, which we obviously are seeing nice progress to quarter after quarter. And basically, just to summarize, they feel like they haven't touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how much promoted listings could be used on eBay. And it's concerning to me. Just concerning to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they're making their money. It's sad that's. I mean, they're a business, they're a platform. You can't fault them for that, but at the same time, I mean, you wonder if that same energy and focus they put in order to get that bottom line up, if they put that same energy and focus into increasing their customer base, then we'd all win, you know. But I think it's a slower process, and so yeah, they're gonna. I think. I heard the analogy the other day and I thought it was so good. The difference between protein gains and like sugar gains. You know what I mean? Like if you're trying to like make a difference in a business or in an organization or whatever, your sales on eBay, you could have sugar gains where it's like it's fast, it's not long lasting. If you drop the prices on all your items by 50%, things are going to fly off the shelf. But that's not like a long-term solution. Whereas like protein gains, it's harder. It's like building muscle. Like it takes longer to build that infrastructure. But if all they're doing is continuing to increase their ability to make more on ad revenue, or not ad revenue, but promoted listings. So it's tough, you know. It's like you hate to hear it as a reseller.
I know. All right, and then this next one I thought was interesting. This is the last one we'll do of these. So somebody had asked a question, said, I don't know, is this guy from Ross? Says, hey guys, this is Alex Hughes on for Ross. It's like the Ross stores. I don't know. That is kind of interesting. Or maybe for a person called Ross. I don't know. I said, so looking at collectibles, news came out earlier this week that one of your trading card power sellers is moving to Fanatics in the next few months. And we didn't talk about that, but one of the huge power sellers that I think they have like millions of items on eBay is leaving eBay, and they're going over to the Fanatics. Says, can you just give a little more color as to the situation and if the golden deal played a factor? And then stepping back, collectibles is driving a lot of growth in focus categories, but can you talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about the opportunity more broadly? So basically, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he goes into this whole thing about like, yes, we are looking at collectibles driving a lot of eBay. Like it's one of our focus groups. It's really what we want to keep going. And they talk about the partnership with PSA now and so on. And so I definitely feel that like this is, if you're thinking about sourcing, like, you know, yes, clothing you can still sell. Yes, shoes you can still sell. But one thing I truly believe that eBay is going to begin to prioritize more, and maybe it's because they are trying to compete with Whatnot, is going to be collectibles. They're very big on collectibles. Like all I ever hear about is collectibles, luxury brands, and refurbishing. We talked about that on the live a couple of days ago, but it just seems like this is the direction it's going. And so just be careful out there when you're sourcing. I do think it's going to create like a kind of like things are going to get caught up in the sense that you're going to have a lot of people that are going to come on trying to sell clothing, trying to sell shoes, trying to sell these items, which most of our listeners sell. I still sell a lot of those things, but it's just if eBay is not favoring towards those things, like I think it's going to get a little bit more difficult to sell. Again, if you got the right item, you got the right vintage shirt, you got the right, I don't know, Tommy Bahama shirt that somebody wants, you're still going to sell it, but it's not going to be the same as if you're in the collectible world and eBay is preferring that you sell those kind of items. Because you never hear the CEO go like, yes, we're so excited about our vintage clothing market. We're so excited about, you know, our used shoes market. That's just not what eBay is about these days.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost in some ways like it's going back to its roots. I feel like eBay was always kind of started as like the collectible, right? Like it was the place to get the unique collectibles. And in some ways it's kind of turned into, at least for a lot of us, almost like a open swap meet, like we talked about on that previous episode. It's not a perfect analogy, but there's some, it makes sense in some ways. But again, we got to remember, I think we live in our own bubble sometimes, because what percentage of eBay sales and of their total gross, you know, market value comes from resellers like us, compared to the big collectible sellers, compared to their automotive, compared to those other things. I feel like we're such a small percentage, but in our mind, like that's what eBay is, you know, like that eBay is those things.
True.
And when I just think about, even when I go on to check comps, you gotta sometimes go in and actually click used, and then you gotta go in and you know we click sold. So we do those things to check comps, but when you actually just look up an item, like you want to see what something's worth, a lot of times there might only be like 100 of them in the used category, but there's like 700 listings in the new category. And just to realize, like, maybe we're not as big, maybe the used market on eBay and the way we're selling shouldn't be a priority for them. Now, of course I want it to be, but it makes sense if it's not.
Yeah, just a heads up. All right, that's all I want to talk about. If you want to catch more about our thoughts on the eBay earnings, catch our live stream that just dropped a couple of days ago. But I found the report, the 2024 best cities for scouring garage sales. And I was like, I thought that was interesting. Now, right off the bat, what would you guess it would be like? Where would the best city be located, Mike?
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say San Diego.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, San Diego is number 21. 21 on the list. Okay. Nashville was 22. I don't know. Here, let me see if there's any Texas ones here. Oh, San Antonio. How far is San Antonio from you?
Not super close. A few hours.
Okay. All right. Okay. I keep thinking, I forget about how large Texas is. Okay. So this one, so what they did is they did a report. This is from Lawn Love. I don't know what Lawn Love. I think it's like a lawn care. I don't know what it is, but they did a report. Okay. And they came up with this study, and they based it on the ability to access the garage sale. Okay, so is it like, you know, are you able to drive to it? Like, is it pretty easy to access? The interest rank, like, you know, how many people go, how many, you know, how interesting is it based on what they have? The climate rank, like, is it humid? Is it cold? Is it warm? And then on the selling space rank, meaning like, how many, you know, how big is the space that they're trying to sell things? And I found it was interesting. Number one was Los Angeles. So I've never, it's funny, I've never gone sourcing in Los Angeles, but I wonder if that's true. So if anybody from LA is listening, let us know. But Los Angeles got the top. Then it was San Antonio. Then it was Dallas for these. Then Chicago. So I'm gonna definitely, when I travel, I'm gonna see if any of this is true. Indiana was number 8, and I could say I wasn't in Indiana, like Indianapolis. I was out like in somewhere south of Indianapolis, but garage sales were great there. It was really good, like easy access. Weather wasn't too bad. A lot of items to sell. And then but here's what's interesting. New York was actually ahead of San Diego, which I thought was kind of fascinating. And this is why they said that. They said, let me see if I can find it. The best cities for yard sales aren't necessarily filled with big front yards. Busy cities like New York, number 18, lack space for selling, but still have frequent sales. Plus, the chances of rummaging through luxury items are seemingly higher. 2023 saw trends in New York City because they had different like celebrities doing sales and so on. And then they said cities in Florida, Massachusetts, New Jersey were at the bottom because of low interest, small yards, and a small share of homes with garages. Less than 32% of homes have garages to declutter in the bottom 10 cities. So I just thought it was kind of fascinating. You could check this out. One of the cities they have on here is Escondido, which is about 40 minutes north of where I live. And I would say, Escondido, I've been up there in many community sales, and they've had good garage sales. So Napa was in here, and when I think of Napa, I think of like Napa, California wineries. Like, do super wealthy people have garage sales, or maybe there is a section that isn't super wealthy? I don't know. Anyways, I just thought it was fascinating. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're anywhere near the top 10, Los Angeles, San Antonio, Dallas, Chicago, Houston, Fort Worth, Minneapolis, Indianapolis, Wichita, or Portland, go out there. Check out those garage sales. So that's all I got for you on that. Did that bring value to anybody? Do you think that brought value, Mike?
Maybe. I don't know. Let us know in the comments below what's your city, and rate it 1 to 10 on what you think it is as far as reselling. That way we all kind of know. All right, what else we got here?
And then, I thought this was interesting. So we've had a couple hustle of the week that came from landfills. Have you ever tried to source a landfill?
No, I remember when I was young, my dad, we went a couple of times because they had days like where you could get in for like you'd pay a couple dollars and you could go in and like dig through the landfill. But I've been to the dump several times in my life to like just throw things out of the back of a trailer because I've rented a trailer to throw things at the dump, and it's just I can't imagine it's a very easy thing to do. Because, man, as soon as things are coming out, they've got tractors just crushing it and pushing things down. But, I mean, I'd imagine that if you've got more of an old-fashioned landfill where they're not just running it, where as soon as things come out, they're compacting it, I'm sure people do throw away decent stuff. I mean, imagine all the garage sales that we go to where people say, if this stuff doesn't sell, it's just going in the trash. So,
yeah, I thought this news report was interesting. Now, it's not like remember when on The Office, Michael Scott and Dwight had to go out to the landfill because they were looking for like that receipt. Do you remember that? No, there's an episode where that happened. Like, you're not gonna find anything. So yeah, I'm not talking about like paying money and you're going into the landfill. Like, I don't even know how you would find anything at a landfill. What this place does. So this was in Riverside County out here in LA. There's a store called Found It Again Reuse Store, and so the store at the landfill. What they do is they go as they're picking up stuff, they set things aside and then they sell it. So you can get exercise equipment, camping gear, bicycles, kayaks, like all this different stuff. And actually, we've had some resellers here say that when they go to the landfill to drop stuff off, they just, I guess there's this area where you can like, you don't throw it in the landfill, you just leave it there. And I guess some people leave their stuff there and they have found some treasure. So all this to say is, hey, if you got a landfill nearby and you think maybe there's a possibility that they have stuff sitting out, or maybe they have maybe you can set up an arrangement where you can buy stuff, it wouldn't be worth, what's it hurt? It's no different than going to your local dumpster and trying to find stuff, right? Do people still dumpster dive? I haven't seen a lot of videos lately. or the algorithm on YouTube hasn't fed me a lot of videos of dumpster diving. So I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Are you a dumpster diver? I feel like that became very popular and it kind of killed it for everybody. But maybe there's still people in the shadows that still do some dumpster diving.
It'd be a cool way of introducing yourself. Like, oh, what do you do for fun? Like, oh, I do scuba diving. It's a lot of fun. Oh, really? You do scuba diving? I do dumpster diving. That's
yeah,
you know.
Sure. I just. Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on. This has been. I gotta tell you, this has been the weirdest episode we've done in a while, but that's okay. That's okay. All right.
What makes it weird, Orlando? What makes it weird?
I don't know. I don't know. Something just feels off in this episode. I'm not sure. All right. Before we move on to our bolos, hey, if you want to support this weird podcast, you can go to patreon.com/PureHustlePodcast. We get people all the time signing up because they find that, hey, I went on there and there was value and I think it's totally worth it. And so if you haven't yet signed up and you want to help us out, because this podcast does take some time, sometimes it gets real, like this week, like I'm traveling and everything and Mike and I still got to record. So it really helps us out. So if you want to sign up for $5.55 a month, you'll be able to get access also to our Discord. And in our Discord, we have all kinds of resellers. Really motivational, I will tell you. Like, Orlando isn't the best at motivating, but I got to tell you, the people in the Discord, very motivating. What I'd love is the people that just became full-time resellers or the brand new sellers going on there and they're like, oh, I found all this and I scored all this. Like, it really motivates you. So if you want that motivation, you want that encouragement, sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/PureHustlePodcast, or go to the link below. And for $5.55 a month, you will get that motivation. Also, you can leave us an email, purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. It's purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can shoot us a call or give us a call. You can't shoot us a call. You can give us a call. 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or if you want to, you could also shoot us a DM. Send us a DM. I don't know what my deal is today. We're on all social media platforms as Pure Hustle Podcast, except we are Pure Hustle Cast on X. And you can always jump on over to YouTube if you're listening to this podcast and subscribe, hit that bell notification, smash that like button. And as always, we're thankful for all of you that leave us reviews on iTunes. I think next episode we need to share a couple of those. We haven't done that in a while. But let us know, when you review our podcast, when you give us that 5-star, let us know why you give that 5-star so other people can know why Pure Hustle Podcast is worth their time. All right, let's talk about some bolos. Bolo. What's your bolo?
All right. So a lot of people, when they're new to the podcast, we get questions sometimes like, what is a bolo? What's a bolo? So bolo is things that you should be on the lookout for when you're doing your sourcing. If you're at a garage sale, you're on Facebook Marketplace, thrift stores, all those things. So these are things that tend to be hot sellers on eBay. So for me, one that I may have talked about this in a different context previously on the podcast, but at first I was kind of surprised at how many Raspberry Pis I've found. You know what Raspberry Pi is, Orlando?
Well, it's something technical, right? Like computer stuff.
Yeah, they're like these little microcomputers, the size of a credit card. You can get a case for them, makes them a little bit bigger. And when they first came out, it was really niche. It was this really small group of community of people who would get them and want to use them for programming things, making things, video game emulation before you could get, all the games from Temu on a little device, that kind of stuff. Like people would use them for various projects. And I remember I got them, and at the time they came out, they were relatively inexpensive, typically like $20, $30. You can get one of these. So like the fact that you can get a computer for like $20 or $30 and use it for various purposes was pretty neat. But when I first found I found one at a garage sale, I found another one at a swap meet, then I found another one at a garage sale, and then I was at a garage sale that had two of them. I was kind of shocked, why so many Raspberry Pis? And then I realized that it's one of those things that a lot of people get interested in. It's like one of those hobbies. You're reading something, it shows up on a TikTok or something somebody made with a Raspberry Pi. And people go, hey, they're relatively inexpensive. Now the prices on the new ones have definitely gone up quite a bit. But what I've found is that people get them, they use them, or sometimes don't even use them. And then they realize, I'm not going to be programming a little computer or this little desktop calendar that I made. I'm just this kind of silly. And so they end up selling them at garage sales. And I have never found a Raspberry Pi for like more than $5 at a garage sale. People, they get them for relatively inexpensive. So like, yeah, sure, a couple bucks here and there. They're just willing to get rid of them because they never use them. But they still hold their value because getting them new now, especially because a lot of times when people buy them, they don't just buy the Raspberry Pi. It's like, okay, the Raspberry Pi is only $30, but it also comes, I want to get a case to put over it. And then I'm going to get one with the heat sink. And then, I'm going to get a couple of adapter pieces and a thing that goes to a screen. And so they end up buying a lot of accessories for them. And pretty much every time you can all just lump it together. How much for all of this? And they're willing to let it go. And you can, especially if you get some of the newer models, if you get like a Raspberry Pi 4, even the Raspberry Pi 3, you can sell these used, especially if it comes with a decent case, if it comes with some of the add-ons for, $30 to $40 on eBay all day. And like I said, when I find them, and I've found quite a few of them recently, they're so inexpensive. People are just willing to let them go because it's like anything. If you got into a hobby and you paid $30 for it and then you never used it, you're willing to basically just give that thing away. Whereas the people who want them, and sometimes for various reasons, sometimes it's a chip shortage, sometimes it's some new article came out on the uses of Raspberry Pis, they'll sell out really quick. And then that's when they just go like gold on eBay. So don't be afraid if you see a Raspberry Pi. They're these little computers. Just look it up, and they do pretty good, especially the like I said, the newer models. And so anything you can get cheap like that and sell for $30-$40 without even blinking, it's a win-win. Be on the lookout.
There you go. I wouldn't even know what they look. I need to look up images. I don't think I've ever seen one at a garage sale. Like I know what they look like, but I've never seen one at a garage sale. So, all right. So this next one I was reminded of. I went to an estate sale and I told you everything was at eBay prices, but there was one shed that wasn't. But it was like cobwebs everywhere. It was just like junk thrown everywhere. But what I saw were repair manuals. Now, what I mean by repair manuals, they're for cars, so they could be for like an 83 Cutlass, or it could be for a 79 Mercedes, or whatever it is. And they're not huge money makers. Sometimes you can find the good ones. Like if you find anything that's like Volkswagen used, like you could sell them for $100 and $200, depending on, which it is. And then you can find some other cars that are like $50, $60 for them. It all depends on the car. It depends on, how many of those repair manuals are made. Chilton's a good brand. Haynes is another one. There's different ones. But I always find that if there's nothing, like I go to garages sometimes at an estate sale, and I've watched Mike's tool video on YouTube. If you haven't caught it, you should catch it. But even still, like I have a hard time with tools, like because I just get overwhelmed. But I do find that when I see manuals, like I always score on those manuals. So just keep an eye out for those repair manuals. People still want them, and they don't have to be super clean either. You have to remember, most of these people that are going to use them, they're mechanics, so they might get, oil prints all over their books. And so if you sell one, you're going to sell it with the oil print. It's totally fine. And so keep an eye out for manuals. Sometimes, you'll get them for like $1, less than $1, and they'll sell for 20 to 30. And if you pick up like 20 of those on one stop, like you're going to make really good profit. So keep an eye out for repair manuals. All right, Mike, what are you looking forward to here?
Now that I'm getting back into routine, I'm looking forward to hopefully in the next couple of weeks being completely done with my death piles and really picking back up with my sourcing at garage sales. Garage sales were kind of on hold during the summer, and I was doing other type of sourcing. But man, I really miss those garage sales, so definitely looking forward to that. What about you, Orlando?
Wow. Okay, so I got a lot. Number one is I'm looking forward for sales to pick up. We're entering Q3. Hopefully things go well. It's around this time last year where I had some major scores. Like August, September were great months for me. So I'm hoping that the same will happen. I'm also traveling. And so I'm looking forward to going to garage sales in different locations and maybe, I'll find things there. Right. So, I got my Southwest flights booked with my free luggage. And so I'll be able to take some stuff back. And if I can, I'll ship it back home. So I'm looking forward to some of that. And then, I'm always getting contacted by people, and for the last couple of weeks or so, it's been kind of quiet. Like I've had people say, "Hey, Orlando, I got this stuff. I'll reach out to you in a week." crickets. I've had like 3 or 4 people do that to me, and maybe they got busy, maybe it's because of summer. So I'm hoping in this month I'll get a lot of those contacts, because those private picks are the ones that keep driving my reselling. Like I get so much inventory in those private picks. This is why I'm able to just source at garage sales once a week, and I'm totally fine. Like I have a never ending amount of inventory to list. So I'm looking forward to those calls. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And, hopefully all of you are doing well. Let us know how things are going for you. Are things successful? Are you beating that summer slowdown? How are garage sales in your area? Whatever you want to comment, leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you all for tuning in. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling late.
Peace.